Welcome to 1991 Movie Rewind, a podcast where we watch and review every movie released in 1991, from the all-time greatest classics to the critically panned and everything in between. We'll rediscover forgotten fan favorites and uncover hidden gems as we explore the depths of direct-to-video. Join us in our celebration of the fun, unique, and diverse films of this highly underrated year. This week, we watched Afraid of the Dark. Afraid of the Dark tells the story of a young boy named Lucas, played by Ben Keyworth, as he navigates life with his blind mother and her blind friends. This small community is being shaken by someone who's brutally attacking the blind residents, picking them off one by one. Everyone seems suspicious to Lucas, but is everything the way it appears? Screenplay by Peploe and Frederick Seidel, directed by Peploe, and premiered at the Tokyo International Fantastic Film Festival in October 1991. I'm assuming you haven't seen it, but have you heard of this movie?
No, I've never
seen
or heard of this movie.
Yeah, me either. It was trying to be Hitchcock, I think.
I mean, I'm glad I saw it because it was interesting. It
was interesting. I don't know if it fully accomplished what it wanted to for me personally. But
I was into it until maybe 15 minutes towards the end. I was
the last little bit.
Yeah.
I think what bothered me is it didn't really the movie is basically two halves, right? Almost literally halfway through, there's this big twist that happens. But I don't feel like the second half fully reconciles with the first half and ties the
two together.
Yeah. Because there's too much stuff that happens in the first half that is illusionary, I guess. But there's no corresponding reason given in the second half for all of those events. I don't know. Does that make sense? It doesn't tie up the loose ends, I guess.
It's in all this entire movie is all in this little boy's mind.
The first half is, yeah.
But
the second half
even second half?
Well, I mean, the last 15 minutes I would say are, but the second half, we're seeing it from the quote unquote real world perspective, from the parents' perspective in a sense. And so that's meant to be, this is the real situation and here's what's going on. And the first half is his psyche, projections, all this other stuff. So, I mean, it's tough to say that it's all in his head when we have the mother and the father talking about, the eye surgery stuff, and characters are completely different than what they were in the first half.
Yeah, in his head.
Yeah. Right.
But it's his anxiety about losing his eyesight late, as he wasn't born blind. He's becoming blind as an 11-year-old boy. So it's this anxiety of not being able to see after seeing for 10 years ish, and then the anxiety of getting whatever eye surgery he was gonna get looming in the future.
Yeah. And there's other psychological stuff you can examine there in terms of the relationships too that are explored and really could be interesting to unravel. I just don't think that they I don't think it tied up as well as it needed to. I understand where the movie's trying to go, right? Like, you know, because I mean, it's a scary
like it's
thought
all yeah.
to lose your sight as like a 10-year-old kid. I mean, that's when, you know, you don't really necessarily fear dying all the time when you're really little. I mean, I did, but you know, I was a paranoid kid. But I mean, also the idea of just like going blind suddenly or like through an accident or whatever, and in this case it's just progressive vision loss, you know, that's, yeah, I can understand that being extremely traumatic and frightening. And so, you know, you have these ideas of him being the outsider in his own family, because he already kind of is, and, you know, just having that being progressed and having to rely on people his entire life after that, and becoming the other, and, you know, thought of as less than, because that's how he approaches things in the beginning of this movie too. Like, that's how he sees all of the blind people in the beginning of the movie, is less than.
Yeah. Does he really though?
I think so. I mean, what kind of solidifies that a bit is, or at least people that can be taken advantage of. That's also part of it. So I guess that, you know, those kind of go hand in hand. So he sees how everyone in the world is treating these blind people, with, you know, what seems like secret contempt, or just, you know, especially with Rose, a lot of like leering creepiness. But then when he follows that other blind person, Lucy, and purposely does it just to scare her because he can, that's what I think kind of like drove that point home to me, is, you know, oh, this is an animal I can play with. You know, I don't see them as a human being with feelings. I'm just gonna, like,
when he was in that,
freak her out because I can.
In that, I don't even know, is it a hospital? Like the gathering place where all the blind people went.
Yeah, it's a clinic for the blind. I don't remember the name of it, but it's, you know, yeah, it's a gathering place for them to like have classes and just have a communal
like
space, and
yeah,
whatever else, maybe some sort of treatment if they need
for
treatment
all the
or whatever.
People that live in that community, and it seems as if he's the only child in that community, and it's like he's living in this world of blind people, and he's one of the few people that can see. And also, I thought he was the only child up until, I don't know, almost halfway, when he saw other children like vandalizing a car or dancing on her and like jumping on it and stuff. Yeah. But he's just kind of like alone in his head throughout the entire movie, I guess. But
yeah, they kind of try to explain that away in the first part by saying the kids are on holiday, but
he has like,
so almost every other kid like leaves town except for him during this holiday.
Yeah, they don't say what.
But that's
holiday it is.
I mean, that's just the
so
excuse.
A lot of the kids are gone, and he has no one to play with, and
so that's why he's just hanging around
the area, like that neighborhood.
As much, yeah.
But yeah, he starts. But it seems as if he's done this a lot, because he goes into that clinic area and he's stealing sandwiches, and that's when one of the blind men hears
mm-hmm.
like the crinkling of the plastic bag and whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, who is that? Who's there? And then he's, you know, like 3 feet in front of this blind guy, and he's just being very quiet and then waiting for people to calm down before he can sneak off and take these sandwiches. It seems as if he does that a lot.
Yeah, he probably does. And again, I think that's part of his...
like taking advantage.
Projection. Yeah, it's like, okay, well, if I'm going to become blind, then that's a problem, because I know how I would be taking advantage of these people, and I don't want that to happen to me. So, and that whole scene happened, you know, after I think like the third attack, and so everyone in that clinic is on edge, and so yeah, who's there? Who's blah blah blah?
Yeah,
and then like the rest of the people come in, it's like, oh, we're all here. Oh, it's happy, and he's able to escape with the sandwiches that he then feeds to Toby the dog.
Yeah, the movie starts out with an attack. And then we find out that the mom is blind. The father, he's like a policeman.
Mm-hmm.
And,
an off-screen attack. We don't get to see the attack at all.
They just hear about it, and she's like, they're talking together, and Lucas is overhearing them talk, and the mother is just like, I don't want to talk anymore because I don't want Lucas to find out.
And what was interesting about that
scene even though he's listening the entire time.
Yeah, so Lucas is like at the staircase, in between the railings, and the mother Miriam is staring right at him and saying, I'm frightened. And I thought that was intentional, not really. I'm sure it was intentional both ways, but I mean, before I knew that she was blind, because it wasn't 100% obvious at that point.
Yeah.
It's like the first opening scene. And so she's staring him down and saying, I'm frightened. Making it seem like she was frightened of her son.
Yeah, that's like, what
that she knew that he had done it. Right? And then, the scene progresses a little bit more. And it's like, oh, she's blind. That wasn't intentional in the way that I thought. But Mark Peploe probably did still intend
to make you think that he did it. Because that's what I was starting to think. Because whenever there was an attack, he was there. He's always like within the vicinity of these attacks.
Yeah, Lucas is around just kind of like
walking around
like a peeping Tom voyeur type of a person on everybody. Not really, not always
like
in a perverted way, but sometimes. But mostly just a curiosity.
Yeah. Not in a creepy way. And then but they show other people who are not blind that are repairmen. Like, you have the window washer guy, and then you have the other guy who does like all the locks.
An ice cream guy.
All
of them are creepy.
They all are portrayed as being very creepy, and he's looking at them as possible attackers of these blind people. And they're all blind women that get attacked. Yeah,
the idea is everyone is a suspect, right? Or all of the people with sight are suspects.
Yeah.
And I think what aids that is, the creepy guy outside washing windows is like leering in. And then at some point he just sneakily, sort of, like, not really, but he climbs inside the window and just starts whistling inside the room.
And everyone freaks out, but then one of the ladies like, oh, that's just the window washer. So he just does that daily?
It's like, oh, what was that noise? Oh, it must have been the window washer opening the window. But the whistling, I don't know if they show the reaction to that. I think it cuts before they show the reaction to that. But yeah, like, you have the locksmith guy. Because of the attacks, they're sending somebody to come around and change all the locks to all the residents, because the clinic provides housing for all of these people in the community. Apparently, that's part of the thing. And so, the clinic hired somebody to go around and changing all the locks, and he's staring as well.
Just acting and staring creepily at all the blind women.
It's mostly Rose. Like, we're following, like, him. So Rose is like Miriam's friend in this half of the movie. She's like
getting married.
Virtually the only one who's not wearing sunglasses in that entire room. The only one who also isn't is Edith, who was attacked off screen in the very first stage, and so she has the bandage on her face, and you can see her smoky eye, contact lens or whatever they use to do that. So, the intention, and Rose has, like, the top button of her dress unbuttoned, and so, she's meant to be sexualized, I guess, Well,
because there's parts where he is looking, like, he becomes, Lucas becomes kind of like Rose's companion. Like, he's like, I don't know if the mom told him to do this or he just started walking Rose around that neighborhood, sort of helping her because she doesn't want to be attacked.
I think it's a little bit of both. Like the first scenes he offers to, or
well, he
offered
goes with
to
his
help.
mom.
Yeah, the mom takes him to the clinic, and then Rose has to leave early to do some photography stuff with her fiance, and so Lucas accompanies him to the photography studio, and they stop and get ice cream on the way there, and the ice cream guy is like leering and making sexual comments towards her and everything too.
Yeah.
That was after the window washer had come in and kind of like leered, and so after another attack happens, the one that happened on Lucy, I think it's after the train. After one of the attacks, he's like running to possibly go see his mom, make sure that his mom is okay, because he knows that someone blind was attacked, but he doesn't know who.
Yeah, but
So he's running to make sure that things are okay.
Rose.
And runs into Rose instead and just stays with Rose like the entire time instead. And that's when we see the locksmith people. There's a lot to unpack there. I think it's, you could be like a Freudian relationship knowing what's going on in the second half.
Right. And then he also, it's kind of just going back where they live, this neighborhood in London, he's like their little, it's kind of like this apartment complex where, all the blind people live. It looks like that.
I mean, yeah, they're
kind of like this giant
spread out some, yeah.
courtyard situation, and then their backyard is this.
It's a cemetery.
Cemetery. So he's like surrounded by death or like blind people, and it like makes him feel even more alone because and then his friend is the dog Toby.
Mm-hmm. Which belongs to his neighbor who I don't know if this is established in the first half or not, but Rose's fiance is the owner of the dog. I'm not sure if that's true in the first half or not.
I thought it was like whoever the groundskeeper of the cemetery was.
So we just never see the owner in the first half.
Because it seems like Toby stays in the cemetery to ward off any intruders.
The cemetery is, it's like his secret, it's like his treehouse.
Yeah, he just goes to the cemetery.
Like this mausoleum type of a thing that's empty. Well, not empty, but empty enough. It's shelter. It's like a mini house, right?
And that's where he's eating his sandwiches that he stole.
And he has like a cigar box full of like supplies and toys and stuff and whatever else in there too. So that's like his hangout. That's his secret little place that no one else knows about. And
except for Toby the dog.
Yeah, and Toby comes there to eat sandwiches with him. And plays with him and whatever, and like he uses him as like, hey, you can be my guide dog, and like he closes his eyes and lets
he's
Toby guide him through the
to be like what it's like to be blind.
Yeah. The cemetery comes into play a lot more later, but it's. I'm just not sure what to talk about and what not to talk about. I guess, when do we reveal the ending? I mean, we're going to have to at some point.
So, I mean, after just that first half is just...
There's a bunch of... To
the point where, I mean, it's... The last half is where he... Because his father is like, in the beginning, he wakes up and he has this, like, Spider-Man thing, and everyone calls him Spider-Man and is... saying, what's Spider-Man up to today, type of thing.
Yeah, he likes to pretend he's Spider-Man.
Yeah, and he, in the beginning, his father said something like, oh, you snuck out again. So it's like a common thing for him to sneak out and go to the cemetery and hang out with Toby.
And it happens at night, too. And we see that happen at night when he, eventually catches the killer, basically.
Right. And just one night where he is sneaking out to go meet with Toby, the locksmith guy is also in the cemetery. And then he's following the locksmith guy because he's like, well, what's this guy doing? Like, is he going to go kill someone? Because he thinks he's going to save the day. Lucas?
I think actually Lucas... Okay, so Lucas is I think originally out to see Toby, but he also has a telescope with him. And at various different times, again, just adding to the voyeur nature of this thing, and just focusing on sight above everything else. You have this one scene where he has the telescope backwards, and you see like the window washer guy on his bike who's riding past, and he's whistling again, Three Blind Mice in this case, because everything has to do with eyes. But at this nighttime scene, he's out and he has his telescope and he's looking through all the different windows and like just peeping on different people.
I think to be, like the Spider-Man, he's watching over all these blind people.
It could be, but not all of them are blind, because you see like one guy watching TV.
Yeah, and just watching over the people.
Yeah, the last one you see Rose with her fiance kissing, and that's when he notices the window washer also looking at Rose outside through the window, and then a chase sequence sort of pursues. But I think it's not the window washer. The locksmith.
The locksmith guy.
I think the locksmith just starts chasing Lucas. I don't think it's the other way around.
Oh,
because at some point Toby comes in and chases
after
the locksmith and catches up, and that allows
attacks
Lucas
him.
Yeah, and allows Lucas to escape.
But then that's when Lucas happens upon Rose at her photo shoot.
Yeah, which is weird, because how did Rose get there so fast? Unless it wasn't Rose in the window with
the fiance?
Right.
I don't know. That's I was like, is this the same day? But that's when he happens upon Rose, and
it's now raining too.
Yeah. Unless this is another night, because we don't...
But it's presented like it's the same night, so it's tough to say.
Yeah. This leads to Rose at a photo shoot, and she's topless and just wearing, like a garter belt and like, I don't know.
So like the photographer again is creeping on her at the beginning. So like before the fiance gets there for that initial photo shoot, he's like, "Oh, have you ever considered doing some
modeling?
Modeling, because you definitely have the body and the looks for it," type of a stuff. And so apparently they made some sort of arrangement, and now, here she is topless and wearing a cowboy hat. He brings in like a mechanical or like
a horse
of some kind for her to sit on and do like a pin-up shot.
Yeah, and it's...
Lucas is watching from a broken window in the alley or whatever, where you can see everything. And again, it's like one of those things where Rose is basically looking right at him, but obviously can't see him. And so you have that like eye contact connection in his mind without it actually being there, to add to the potential pervertedness of it. And
then the photographer starts getting a little gross.
Well, he has a razor, which has been the weapon of choice of this killer. Well, not killer, because no one dies. Not a single person.
Attacker, yeah.
Yeah. None of the women die.
Yeah, all these people are getting slashed, like in the face.
Yeah, they're getting
mutilated. The blind women are being slashed in the face.
Yeah.
Well, I think one woman dies.
I don't know. She's pulled away in a stretcher, but her eyes are open, and so I don't know if it's shock or death.
She just got severely traumatized.
Yeah.
Because
it's tough to say.
And we only see...
And the one on the train, we never hear what happens to her either. We just see like her hand with the blood on the poster after she gets attacked. The older fake red-haired woman.
Right.
I don't remember her name, but
yeah, we only see those two attacks. The woman Lucas was in her apartment building, but then escaped it, and noticed her through the window being slashed.
Yeah.
And then the other one
is a sequence that's weird, because he sneaks into another person's house at the same time that the killer sneaks into Lucy's house.
Yeah.
And, it's sort of set up to make it think that
he did it.
Yeah, or that he's in the same house at the same time at some point.
Yeah.
But instead they do this rear window type of thing where he has the telescope again, and he can see Lucy at the window screaming for help across the way. But yeah, they kind of set it up like sort of like what we'll see in Silence of the Lambs at some point, where you have like this sequence where they make it seem like they're in the same location, but they're not.
Right.
But anyway,
the
Razor
woman
from
at the train station, you just see someone taking her glasses off.
Yeah, and she freaks the fuck out.
She freaks out and she gets slashed. So
yeah, Razor.
Everyone knows that the attacker is slashing blind women.
Yeah.
So Rose is posing on this horse and she's like, that feels weird. What's going on?
Yeah.
And you see him like starting to like cut up her leg, like slashing at her legs.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, giving like sort of like a paper cut type of a deep slash on each of her
But
thighs.
I was like, even if he wasn't the slasher, like what the fuck? What art is this?
Yeah, I mean the intention is, yes, this is the scene where, you know, Lucas will come and save the day.
Yeah,
Lucas sees him grab the
Lucas
razor,
sees this and he has
sneaks
a
around
knitting
with it.
needle with him. Apparently, yeah,
He carries knitting needles around a lot. I
Yeah.
don't know. The knitting needle is very much a recurring theme. The mother Miriam teaches a knitting class at the clinic and stuff like that, and even in the second half, the knitting needles are a big thing, as we'll talk about more in a second.
Yeah, so
yeah, he has the knitting
you
needle
see
with him.
Lucas charging after the photographer and just stabs him right in the eye.
Yeah, and that's the most gruesome part we see in that.
Oh, yeah.
So this now makes the second movie.
The second half, but we don't...
No. This is the second movie in 1991 that we've seen where a guy gets stabbed in the eye with a knitting needle after The Unborn.
Well, yeah, the second half of this movie where we were confused... Because
it cuts. Like, after he gets stabbed in the eye with the needle, it cuts away to the very first shot happening again, where Lucas is on the bed with big, you know...
glasses.
Big goggle-like Coke bottle glasses, tapping one of the lenses with a knitting needle.
Mm-hmm. And then we just think it's the next day.
Right.
But it turns out that this is Lucas in real life, maybe? Because now he, in turn, is becoming blind and everyone in his family can perfectly see.
Yeah, it's a very strange sequence because we see that shot and then we come down and here's Rose dancing in her wedding dress with Frank, who is Lucas's dad. And we're like, okay, so the wedding's gonna happen. Like, we know that Rose is getting married, but it's like are Rose and why is Rose dancing with Frank? Like, why are they so happy? And I thought it was like after the wedding or something. But as the scene progresses, we learn that Rose is Frank's daughter from a previous marriage, which is not the case in the first half.
Yeah. And also,
now
Miriam is pregnant.
Is now pregnant, which also was not true. And they can both clearly see there's, obvious indications in the way that they're talking and interacting and moving their heads and everything that, yeah, they both have perfect sight now.
Yeah.
So something is different about this half. And it's very jarring and confusing to us. Like, is this an alternate timeline? Like, what is going on? And now all of a sudden the locksmith appears as well.
And he's just like a friend.
He's just a friend of the family. He's, someone who's helping with the wedding photos and whatnot. And he's given a name Tom. So here's Tom and everybody. And guess what? Rose isn't marrying, what's his name in the Jim. She's marrying the photographer who was attacking her in the scene previous.
In the first part, yeah.
And his eye is not stabbed out. So
then we soon realize this is all in Lucas's thoughts.
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing, and this is where I think I have a bit of the problem with it, because we see Edith, we see Lucy at the wedding. So it's basically this is the wedding day, everyone's going to the wedding reception. And so everybody from the first half is there. It's Wizard of Oz, here we go. You were there. And
no one's been attacked.
Harmed.
Yeah.
No one is blind, or even I don't know if anyone's even wearing glasses except for Lucas. Mm-hmm. I think it goes that far with it.
But in his mind, he still feels like he has to be the protector. because he has this anxiety about this future eye appointment he has, and then also his impending new sibling. Like he wants to be the protector.
Yeah, he wants to be more important than he ultimately is, especially as like a 10-year-old.
Yeah, because he kind of is ignored.
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of this stems from is, okay, he feels invisible. And so, you know, making it so that he cannot see on top of already feeling like he's invisible is basically like, okay, once I go blind, I'm not going to exist.
Yeah.
And I think at the wedding, he talks to Anthony, who is the photographer / groom in this. And he has this interesting conversation, I think probably, I don't know, the best conversation in the movie, in my opinion, like where he's talking about, you know, how he no longer wants to be Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, well, Spider-Man never wins. He's like, well, wait a minute, I thought Spider-Man always wins. It's like, no, he doesn't win. The bad guy always comes back. Well, but it's a different bad guy each time. Not really. Like, they're the same bad guy, they just look different.
Yeah, they change. But yeah,
so, like,
that's
I don't
why
want
I
to be
was
Spider-Man
thinking
anymore.
but
Like Spider-Man, sorry to cut you off there. Like he's part of his thing is like the Spidey sense. He can't rely on his vision.
That's why. Yeah, I mean, he wants to be known as Spider-Man. You know how little kids.
He wants to be a hero, and this is a hero who, you know.
And that's
it's
when
not so much about seeing; it's about sensing.
He also
things
even has
around
like
you.
this Spider-Man toy that we see in the beginning that kind of like he pulls on it, and then the little Spider-Man climbs up to the top of his wall, like this weird alarm clock looking thing, and he touches that like every day. So you know he has that obsession with Spider-Man.
Yeah,
and it's like he wants to be like a superhero, but he doesn't want to be Spider-Man anymore.
Yeah, now he doesn't
because
want to be
of this losing of his vision.
Yeah, I think things are just hitting him really hard at this point because he's so much closer to this surgery.
Yeah, that's going to like what's the surgery? The surgery is just going to make him
hopefully see better,
right? Not make him even more blind. But I know it's...
I don't know when this movie takes place. I don't know if it takes place in like 1990-ish or if it's a little bit earlier than that.
Yeah, this is like pre-laser eye surgery or something.
Yeah, like it really is before like LASIK and some of these, you know, cataract surgery, whatever. Like eye surgery, I know from work experience, has come a long, long way. And you know, 30 years ago, some of these things were a lot riskier and more difficult.
He has this poor like anxiety about it, but it seems like no one really pays too much attention to his
it's tough
anxiety or his like internal struggles.
Yeah, he's kind of like left to the side because I think he's a child, but obviously also, you know, so like sometimes children are just ignored because that's just how it is.
Like people, this also just
you don't treat children's problems as if they're adult problems with, you know.
Yeah, that's with that conversation with that guy. It was just like, well, I mean, even though that was kind of like an adult conversation,
that was the most adult conversation he gets to have.
But because you know like, how certain, well, I don't know,
taken aback by the profoundness of that statement.
A lot of adults don't know how to talk to kids, so that guy was like trying to talk to him to be on the level as Lucas, like like we're just gonna talk casually about Spider-Man because I know that you really were or are obsessed with Spider-Man, but then it turns into this profound adult conversation.
But I think that's part of it is just that he's a kid. I think the other part of it, obviously, is like everyone's consumed with this whole wedding thing, and then everyone's also concerned with Miriam's pregnancy.
Yeah,
to the point where
making him feel left out.
When she goes into labor at the wedding, because of course we gotta stay some time, there's this cliched scene where Lucas falls and his glasses come off of his face, and everyone's stomping on his glasses on their way to rush to like look at Miriam get into a car and go have her baby, as if that's super fucking important, you know? It's like, oh, everyone needs to like crowd the hallway because Miriam's gonna have her baby. Like, oh, let's go look and watch her go down a stair. Maybe maybe the head will pop out as she's walking down or something. But it's like everyone's, who gives a shit about Lucas and his glasses or watching where I'm going? I'm just gonna clomp all over your shit. Because movies.
But then it like jumps forward in time a few months because the baby is like however...
She's still like a newborn.
Okay. Well, like...
I mean, there's a couple scenes in between because like the dad is, he's like, okay, he brings the TV home. He's like, I gotta go back because visiting hours are gonna end soon. And, they're not allowing young kids at visiting hours, and you don't have a babysitter, but here's this brand new TV with bad reception, and, that's when he, he does, like, the worst thing in the movie, but, I think before that, like, even, like, in the wedding scenes and everything, we get this other glimpse of the whole situation, which is something that, again, doesn't really make tons and tons of sense, but basically, when Lucas's glasses are on, he sees the world for what it quote-unquote really is. Mm-hmm. What the real world actually is, and everything's fine. When he takes the glasses off, or if they fall off, everyone becomes blind, except for him. So everything it's like reversed, where he's the one who can see. It's basically like whatever is happening in the first half. Mm-hmm. That's what he sees when his glasses are off. He sees everyone else being debilitated and helpless, and he's the good one.
Yeah, but he still does the waking up in the middle of the night and sneaking into the cemetery thing.
Well, yeah, and like the thing with Toby as well. It's like, he's supposed to feed Toby every night.
Yeah, he's supposed to feed Toby every night. So that is still true in both stories.
And in this case, Toby's owner is like Rose's fiance from the first half, Jim.
Yeah, their neighbor.
Yeah, the neighbor.
And because there is a point where near the end, where he is becoming just a little bit more fearful, and
the roles reverse at some point at the very, very end.
That's where I got lost, and I was like, this could have ended like right when the baby was born, basically, because after that it turned into like his internal like anxieties. I just keep on saying that, but he's like helping this one guy paint or wash the windows. So here we go with window washing.
Yeah.
And that's when Toby comes up to the window, and he always has the knitting needle with him like everywhere he goes. And he's helping with the washing of the windows, and he sees Toby trying to come into the window, but from Lucas's perspective, it looks as if Toby is like Cujo and trying to attack him.
Yeah, somehow his glasses come off, and and unfortunately the same thing. Like when his glasses are off, everything is reversed in his mind, and so if you can see him when on, then you can't when it's off, and so everything that was good when your glasses are on is now evil in a sense. Yeah, and so this dog is like.
He thinks Toby's attacking him.
He doesn't recognize it as Toby and attacks it.
And we don't see this, thank God. He stabs Toby in the eye, and this is where I was like, okay, well, I'm lost and done. And because after that, it gets weird where the window washer guy that was Lucas was helping, he hears like a yelp.
Yeah.
Like I heard like a dog was dying, which yeah, a dog was dying.
Yeah.
But how did Toby get... Because later on we see Lucas hid Toby like in their basement for however many days.
It was like, yeah, like the outside downstairs area where like the trash would be kept and stuff like that in the alley.
Okay, but
so
it's
I
like
don't know
he
if
quickly...
the dog like fell there to begin with, or if he was in. Yeah, they don't show, like they don't explain
show it, but it's
or
like...
if he was inside the house and then like Toby just like brought him out later on, because I'm sorry,
Lucas knew about...
because Lucas...
And he had to clean up they show him cleaning up the blood.
Yeah.
From the dog attack. So it's like he knew that he killed the dog.
Well, not only that, but he also makes up a lie because his dad comes home.
Yeah.
Because he's been alone this entire time. He says, okay, well, what happened? Like, why do you have blood on your shirt? He's like, oh, I cut my finger. And he has like a fake bandage on at that time. Well, real bandage, but it's covering up nothing. And then later on, when the dad leaves again, at dinner, he cuts his finger to, cover up the lie.
Yeah.
Because his dad does check. He's a cop, and he's like getting suspicious. Like, well, I think something's going on. But like, yeah, it's tough to know what's going on in Lucas's head because
this is where I started to like, I don't know. This is where I started to trail off because I was like, okay, this is...
It's around that time where things get difficult for the audience because it's clearly not just the glasses thing. Because Lucas...
It's like, but he...
pretends like he doesn't... I guess I don't know if he's pretending or not. Like, he pretends like he doesn't know what happened to Toby.
Yeah, this is where
But
I'm like,
also
okay,
does
is he
and doesn't.
really secretly a slasher? Like, is he going to start killing people? What was in the first part of the movie that he was afraid of that entire time.
Yeah, and it's not just the first half that helps us understand that he doesn't understand reality, but it's also simple things like, and it could be chalked up to just child's imagination, where he does have that knitting needle, but in one scene where he goes to see the eye doctor, who was like the lead of the clinic, the guy who says, who's in the kitchen? Mm-hmm. Like, he's now the eye doctor. He calls it his telescope. So he never actually has a telescope. The telescope that he has in the first half of the movie, he actually steals from the house he breaks into. But in this one, the knitting needle that he stuffs in his sleeve is now his telescope, right? So, like, it's that kind of thing where you can see that he doesn't really have a full grasp of reality all the time, even with the glasses on. But how much of that is child's imagination and how much isn't, kind of tough to tell. But then it gets really, really complex at the end, where he's basically wanting to attack the newborn baby,
but
because it has sight, and he assumes that it, like, she's gonna go blind at some point anyway, and so.
But he wants to also protect her. Like, he wants to protect her,
way
but
of protecting her.
Yeah. And this confused me. So the dad went to go to work. He's home alone. Like, where's the mom?
Alone. So. At what point? Because, like, when the mom and the baby are at the hospital, and then all the scenes with Lucas and the baby... Okay, Lucas supposedly also got a fever at some point, which is also how they're trying to explain away some of his behaviors. Like, he's sick, and he's supposed to be up and resting. But they're all, like, in the downstairs kitchen talking, and Lucas just sneaks down and, like, is about to stab the baby when the dad comes in. But the rest of them are in the kitchen at that time. The baby's on the floor in his... in her crib.
Yeah,
but Rose and Tom and Anthony and Frank and Miriam, they're all in the kitchen, except Frank like hears something or whatever.
That's when he gets up and
just happens to notice right before.
He takes the baby because the baby is alone crying, and he's like, okay, I need to protect the baby, and he takes her to the cemetery.
Yeah, so like, yeah, the dad catches him before he stabs the kid with the knitting needle, and then he's told to go upstairs. Everyone goes back to their respective rooms, but Lucas comes back, steals the baby, and sneaks out of his bedroom with the baby, and goes to the cemetery.
Yeah,
and then they find it.
That's when everyone's like, "Where's the baby?" And you know, and then but where is Lucas as well? Because Lucas is supposed to be in bed.
Yeah, and Dad was the only
that's
one
when
who
the
was suspicious
father,
of...
the father is like, Lucas took the baby, and he starts to freak out because that's when they also find the body of Toby, the neighbor, and they're all lamenting the death of Toby, and they're like, oh, we gotta tell Lucas, like, what's Lucas gonna think? Because, you know, Toby and Lucas, you know, they're friends.
Yeah, but Frank the dad is suspicious of...
Yeah,
he's like, oh, okay, in the back of my mind, I think that maybe this kid did something.
and that's when he was like, Lucas killed Toby, like, to himself. Like, I don't think he told anyone, but he figured out.
He assumes. He doesn't have proof, but he's pretty sure that that's what happened. And that's why he checked the finger, and he's like temporarily relieved, and then like the stuff with the daughter happens, the newborn, and then he's like, okay, never mind, this is what's going on. But yeah, at the cemetery scene at the end with the climax and everything, the whole glasses versus not glasses stuff gets mixed up, right? So like, you know, before, if he takes the glasses off, then everyone else is blind. Now it's reversed, like right at this end part. That makes things more difficult. So like, it's clearly not just like the vision thing and the anxiety. There's like deeper seated issues there that don't really get addressed by the end of this movie.
Yeah, that's what, and then it just ends, and I was like, oh, what?
Yeah, so
like I wanted to know additional things.
Yeah, they get to the mausoleum type of building, whatever, and then Dr. Burns is there. Like, you know, the eye doctor guy he sees in that one scene earlier on. And he's like, he has the knitting needle and like this glassed over eyes because he's blind in this world, even though Lucas has his glasses on. And, you know, he's ready to like stab down, and that's when it like cuts to the surgery happening.
Yeah. So this was all in like the first
this
part.
Stuff happen? Did this, like, what happened?
It makes you think, did this even happen at all?
Yeah.
Because the first part of the movie and the second part of the movie could have been all in Lucas's head while he's under anesthesia getting this eye exam or eye surgery.
Yeah, I mean, they say a couple things after the surgery is done to indicate that yes, that all did happen. You know, the mom was a little bit hesitant to let him hold the baby. The baby. But yeah, everything is okay, I guess. And then like the end scene is him laying in bed with a nurse who's there to watch over, and she's like knitting something as well, and then the end.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that could be unpacked with this movie. I just don't. It's really tough to say because, you know, like I said, it's not just the blind versus not blind stuff, but it's also like the relationship with Rose when you learn that he's half sisters with Rose and like is sexualizing her in this first half, and you know, like there's that kind of like aspect of things, and the relationship with the mother and all these other different characters that you have in here that, and there's so many different connections, like stuff and imagery that happens in the first one comes back in the second half as well. And aside from just being in both, I don't know what a lot of it means. Like, why is the doctor making the tapestry that was the background of the photograph of Jim and Rose in the first half, you know? Like,
yeah.
Aside from us to say, okay, this is where Lucas may have pulled that into his mind, but from the audience perspective, we saw this stuff first, and now we're seeing it again. Like, you know, now we see where the cowboy hat is in the second half. Now we see where this image is in the second half. But so then, which one really came first? I don't know.
Yeah, the first or the second. Yeah.
Yeah, like,
or they like intertwine or something.
Yeah, and like, why did he have this mass hallucination to begin with, and like, what purpose does it really serve? And I don't know. It didn't really flow as well as it wanted to. Yeah,
I mean, I was really into it up until like after he killed Toby, and then things started to escalate with him taking the baby, and
the movie had a good premise. I think even just on the surface of here's someone going around attacking blind people, I think is good enough to hold a movie on its own.
Yeah,
the fact that they went to a different direction with it is fine.
Yeah, that's fine too, changing the perspective. But
I think some of the imagery and stuff was, heavy-handed, and like anything you can think of that has to do with like eyeballs or vision is thrown in here as like a reference or a metaphor, and it's just a little bit too much for me. And again, didn't have the resolution it needed to at the end. Like, is it really a happy ending? Because he clearly struggles with reality besides just the
and then because then I was like, well, okay, they still had to, if he did kill the dog, so that really happened, and then he was about to kill the baby, so I mean, and then he has to get the surgery, so I wanted to know more, like, mentally, does he have to go talk to someone about his mental health? Because he was about to kill a baby.
It would be nice to see like what he was going to be after the eye surgery. Like, is he really just going to,
like, did the eye surgery really work, or is he full? Like, it would have been interesting if he woke up and he was actually blind. Like, all his fears did come to life.
Yeah, either way would have been fine, honestly. I just would have wanted to have a little bit more resolution, like add like another scene or two to help us understand what is going to be next for him.
Yeah.
Was the eye surgery enough to correct whatever was going on in his head mentally? That doesn't seem like it should be the case, but yeah, I don't know, whatever. I don't know. That's all we got. I think it was trying to be like Hitchcockian a little bit and just didn't quite do it. Should we talk about cast and crew?
Yeah.
Okay. We got Mark Peploe here as the writer and director of the movie. This is his first feature that he directed. The only other one that he did was his last movie in 1996, Victory, which he also wrote. He's best known as being the Oscar and Golden Globe winner for Best Screenplay for The Last Emperor. He's also written The Passenger, High Season, and Little Buddha. I'm not sure why he stopped working after 1996, but I think he's still alive. Frederick Seidel, if I'm pronouncing that right, probably not. He also did Victory with Mark Peploe, and a short movie called Samson and Delilah with him as well. So his only writing credits are with Mark Peploe. Frank was played by James Fox, Golden Globe nominee for Promising Newcomer back in the 60s. Here's a long title. For a production called Those Magnificent Men in Their Flying Machines, or How I Flew from London to Paris in 25 Hours, 11 Minutes. Never heard of it before. He also has a BAFTA win for The Servant for Best Promising Newcomer. BAFTA nomination for A Passage to India. He's been in things like Mark Peploe's High Season, Remains of the Day, Patriot Games, Sexy Beast, and Sherlock Holmes, the 2000 whatever version with Robert Downey Jr. Miriam was played by Fanny Ardant, Cannes nominee for the Golden Camera Award for directing Ashes and Blood in 2009, but also well known for her acting work. She has a César win for Belle Époque. I don't know how to pronounce that. Belle Époque.
It was you're close.
I'm close.
Belle
Époque.
The more you say it.
I don't know French pronunciations at all. Sorry. I should have run this by you before we started, but here we are.
I'm not like a historian on the French language.
More than me. And then also she has a win for a movie called Pedale Douce. I don't know how to pronounce that either. She's also been nominated for things like 8 Women and 4 other César nominations for acting. She's going to be in the 1991 movies Nothing But Lies and The Deserter's Wife. She's been in things like Natalie. The Elizabeth movie from 1999 that starred Cate Blanchett as Queen Elizabeth. Whatever. The whatever
the
part.
First?
Yes, the first. There you go. I don't know. I haven't seen this. I don't know. She's been confidentially yours. The Woman Next Door, which she starred in with director Francis Truffaut's movie, and that's where they met and later had an affair and had a child before his death a few years later. Paul McGann played Tony Dalton, the photographer guy who is the killer slash husband, depending on which path you're looking at. He's known for things like With Nail and I, where he played And I. He played a role in Alien 3, Three Musketeers, Horatio Hornblower movies. He has a prominent role in those as well. And he's also technically the 8th Doctor Who, where he appeared in the 1996 movie. But no, I don't think any other TV stuff beyond that. He wasn't in the series, but he has played the Doctor in several audio productions, like radio plays and stuff like that, podcasts since then. So he is a Doctor Who. And more recently, he's also been in the TV show Luther. And then we have Dan Burns, the ophthalmologist slash lead blind guy from the clinic, played by Sir Robert Stevens. He's in the 1991 movies The 30 Door Key and The Pope Must Diet. He was knighted in 1995, shortly before his death, and he's the ex-husband of Maggie Smith. We'll talk about him more later when we get to those movies. Lastly, I'll quickly talk about Lucas, who's played by Ben Keyworth. He only has 2 other credits listed. One episode of a TV show called The Big Breakfast, and then also a movie called Harnessing Peacocks. Neither one of those I've heard of, but it looks like he's out of the industry. Last person we'll talk about is David Thewlis, who plays the locksmith slash Tom Miller. He was, magically the family friend. Emmy and Golden Globe nominated for his work on the Fargo TV series. BAFTA nominated for the Best Short Film, Hello, Hello, Hello. Best Actor nominations for The Landscapers. A Cannes win for Naked, which he did in a couple years later after this movie. That was like his big breakout role. Razzie nominated for Basic Instinct 2 and The Omen, which both were released in the same year, and so he got a dual Razzie nomination for those roles. But also well known for things like Island of Dr. Moreau, War Horse, Wonder Woman, Big Lebowski, and several of the Harry Potter movies, where he plays which character?
Remus Lupin.
Remus Lupin, there you go. So here he's a creepy locksmith slash good guy friend of the family. No real awards to mention, except there was another film festival where his grand prize nominated for the Avorius Fantastic Film Festival. I'm not really sure. I'm not too familiar with that one. But that lost to a movie called Escape from the Liberty Cinema, which is a Polish movie from 1990. So, didn't win any awards at this Tokyo Film Festival, and we could not find an exact date of this, which sort of leads us into true kind of pop culture.
Yeah, so since this was released in October 1991 and we couldn't find a date, I'm just going to talk about the Tokyo International Film Festival and the Tokyo Grand Prix winner for 1991 was the movie City of Hope, directed by John Sayles.
Which is on our list.
Yes. The other movies that were playing at the Tokyo International Film Festival, a couple are on our list, and one we've already seen, that being A Brighter Summer Day. Another one is The Commitments. That's like the which I know is on our list.
Foreign film, yeah.
Yeah, and the others are A Scene at the Sea, Iron Maze.
That one should be on our list.
Oh, yeah. It is? Okay, cool. So. That's directed by Hiroka Yoshida. And then another movie called Izdy? I-Z-Y-D-I.
That one doesn't sound familiar.
And also the Tokyo International Film Festival, it began in 1985 and it was an every other year event until 1991. And then after 1991, it became a yearly event.
Okay.
And I'm looking at all the other winners for the past few years, like the Grand Prix winners, and I don't know any of them. For 2021, it was Vera Dreams of the Sea.
Okay.
And in 2019 was a Danish movie called Uncle. I don't know if... Yeah, some of these movies I've never even heard of, but I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, that happens sometimes. I mean,
like,
honestly,
they just don't come here. Or they maybe do during other festivals
Yeah,
like
or they're not meant for the U.S. audience as much. I don't know. I mean, I honestly don't like it all that much when places like Cannes and Venice and even Chicago International Film Festival will play movies that we know are going to get theatrically released otherwise.
I'm fine with that, because...
I'd rather it focus on more independent features that...
Yeah, but then it's hard to see.
But yeah, the prestige... Yeah, I understand, but like the... I want it to be like Sundance, you know what I mean? Like, well, I mean, Sundance has that problem too now, but like Vegas in Space, for instance, got distribution because it was at Sundance and got this acclaim and appeal.
Mm-hmm.
These other movies, they already have distribution. They don't need that. That's what I have a problem with. Is like you're taking a slot away, in my opinion, from someone who could get discovered and then get released to the masses because
like
of its appeal and
showing a movie from a very famous director that is coming out of retirement or something.
Yeah, but I understand why the film festivals do it, because they can get the big names to possibly come there for a Q&A. It increases ticket sales and appeal to the festival in general, but at the same time it's also, I don't know, like there's enough movies that you would hope at some point the festival would be enough of a draw in itself, and then
you to see and
then let
not
companies
well-known,
hopefully come through and pick them up and distribute them from there.
Yeah. Kind of like by word of mouth and be like, oh, I saw this movie at this festival and it was amazing and I wish the whole world can see it. I mean, that's kind of like how when we used to go to the film, the Chicago, like a lot of the movies.
I never saw the ones that I knew were going to hit theaters in a month after,
Yeah, but it was also really hard to find, to get like DVDs of.
Yeah, the stuff that we saw. Yeah, the stuff that we see sometimes has never been released. Because there's a few that I would love to watch again and I can't.
Yeah, me too.
Like Summer in the Golden Valley, I think is one that I think about most, which I don't think you saw with me either. It's like I think it's like a Czechoslovakian movie or something like that, but it was really good and no way to watch it. It's impossible to find.
That's what makes me kind of.
It's a dual-edged sword.
Mad, because I want to like rewatch them. I mean, one of them we did see that we do have the DVD of the Taste of Tea, which I'm glad because I love that movie.
Yeah. Some of them get like international releases and you have to import them as well. So yeah, stuff like Taste of Tea, like Taxidermia, and like sometimes they take a little bit of time to come here, but yeah.
But I know that for the longest time...
Spring, I think, was also in that category.
Yeah, for the longest time I was trying to find Journey into Bliss for your birthday, because I know you love that movie. and
there's some problematic scenes in it, but overall it's such a weird, like, out there movie.
Like, I would want to watch that again, and you can't watch it. It's like you see it once and then that's it, and it's like in your brain, but you're like, oh, I really want to see this, and I wish other people saw it.
There's no way to share it.
Yeah, except for like you and whoever you went with and whoever was in the audience. It's like, I mean, I get it's cool, like a whatever.
But I think long story short, I think maybe part of the reason why you don't know some of these movies from Tokyo International Film Festival is maybe they do focus a little bit more attention on the unknown movies rather than the bigger names sometimes. Or, they're at least more eligible for awards than maybe like if you have like a US release that appears there as like a special presentation, maybe it's not eligible for the Grand Prix award. So, I don't know.
Yeah, so moving on, I'm not doing TV, well, sorta, maybe, I don't know. But I'm not doing music, but I was just looking up what happened in October, since this month is like our Halloween horror month. I Googled what happened on Halloween in 1991, and I found out that there was a major Halloween blizzard of 1991. So... this snowstorm hit part of the northern part of Minnesota down into parts of Wisconsin, but the major cities that were hit with this snowstorm were like the Twin Cities and Duluth. Duluth is, further north, on right where Lake Superior is. And it started to snow in Duluth at 1 p.m. on October 31st, 1991, and it did not end until 1 p.m. on November 3rd. So continuous snowfall for like 3-4 days. And the total snowfall was 36.9 inches, which is like 3 feet. But I kind of went down a rabbit hole again. And I also found like a YouTube clip of a local Minnesotan news channel last year, because they were talking about the 30th anniversary of this storm, how people still remember it to this day. And it was the meteorologist who was the meteorologist for that news station from 1991 talking to the current meteorologist that is on that Minnesotan news station. And it's a 25-minute long thing. I didn't watch the whole thing, but it was, from what I watched, it was very interesting. It was just them talking about, what a eventful night that was. And they show clips of people still dressing their kid, like the kids were still trick-or-treating even though it was starting to snow and blizzardy.
Yeah.
And you see kids like in like snowsuits, but their costumes over it, trick-or-treating. And then they show the aftermath where it's people getting stuck, in traffic, and they interviewed people saying, oh, I got out of work and I couldn't even, go home.
Yeah.
Like some people couldn't even leave their jobs, and some people couldn't even get to their jobs. And then they show certain parts where I thought was funny, where it was like pizza delivery, people delivering the pizza by snowblower. I thought that was funny and kind of cute. But then also another thing that happened around the same time, like this storm in part was like caused by another weather pattern that was happening in the East Coast, which is called the perfect storm, which is based on the book, which the movie came out. That movie, The Perfect Storm, is based on the one that came out in the year 20 years ago. The one I've never seen it. The one with George Clooney and Mark Wahlberg, which that storm was. So while this storm was going on, the perfect storm was happening in the East Coast, and that's when, the book was based loosely. The book was written by, it wasn't written by, because I never saw the movie, and all I know it's like about, like a fishing boat, and these people were like, we don't care that the weather is shitty, and, like a typical, you shouldn't go out because the weather is bad, but they're like, oh, but we haven't caught fish in X amount of days, and we really need to fish, so we're just going to go out through this storm anyways, type of thing. So it's like everyone dies except for one person. And I thought that person wrote this book. But no. The person that survived. The book was written by Sebastian Junger, who it's a creative non-fiction book, so it's like the movie The Perfect Storm is like loosely based off of what really happened,
right?
So like these people aren't necessarily real, right, but this storm did happen. So I thought that was interesting, because I was like, oh well, I thought the movie Perfect Storm was based off the person that survived stories. But no.
So we'll move to rankings and ratings. Where on your 1 to 5 star scale are you going to put Afraid of the Dark?
I was going to give this... I was in between 2 and a 3.
Okay.
But I think I'm gonna give it a 2.
You talked yourself down a little bit.
I was hard, like, I really liked I was into it until, like, the last... This is what gets me with a lot of horror movies, where...
Yeah, and this isn't super horror.
Yeah, this is psychological thriller.
Yeah.
Whatever. But anything, like, thriller, horror, where I get, like, so into it, and then I get disappointed by the end. Like, the last 15 minutes always, like, pisses me off so much that I'm, like... disappointed.
Sure.
But
yeah, it's like the first half I was into. Like, it was okay, I get it, like, this is cool, like, let's see what goes on with this, and then, like, it switches.
Yeah, I was fine with the switch.
And I was okay with the switch too.
Yeah.
Once I figured out that it was a switch. But yeah, I'm like, yeah, the ending just kind of, I don't know if it just moved too fast or what.
You're kind of just like, okay, that's it. Like, you need some sort of closure with some of these things.
It feels like there's so many different, like, psychological themes that it's trying to explore, or, you know, like, thoughts in this kid's head, and like, you know, ideas that they're trying to resolve within themselves, and conflicts within themselves they're trying to resolve. And then nothing really gets to happen at the end. So, yeah, on my 0 to 4 star scale, I'm going to give it a 3 because I think it was made well. You know, like, the cinematography wasn't, you know, like, you're not going to see a whole lot of, oddly, not a lot of play of, like, light and shadows and stuff, but you do see, I don't know, I like the way that they play with, like, the telescope and the perspectives of things and everything, but, yeah, just it wasn't a satisfying ending. It felt unfinished and rushed. Every movie's worth watching once. Would you watch this again?
If it was part of some movie festival, like if they did another festival, yeah.
I mean, if I don't know, if there's like a Q&A or something like that,
like some sort of Criterion.
Yeah, I think I would need to see it with additional context presented to me, because you could easily go back and watch this movie again if you like it enough to try to search for different clues. You know,
yeah,
like, okay, what are some of the recurring visuals?
I like movies like that, where movies that don't really make sense and you want to make sense of it.
Yeah, or like what we're talking about, like Barton Fink and like Fried Green Tomatoes or something like that, where you have the ability to possibly go back and look at things in a different perspective once you know the end. I just don't think there'd be enough value for me to do it on my own.
I think like we already
need a guide.
Yeah, I think we just know the end, and the end was like, oh, he just gets his surgery anyways.
Yeah.
And
it's not going to provide a whole lot of value to be like, oh, there was that cowboy hat. Like, oh, yeah, okay, there's that poster.
Yeah, we're not trying to figure out who the slasher was in the beginning part. Like,
yeah.
And
seeing different objects is not going to give us more insight as to what's going on in the character's mind. So, but maybe we're wrong, but we would need like an academic type of person to kind of like convince us. So that'd be how I would watch it again.
I mean, okay, this also, I know you haven't seen this movie, and this reminded me of Lost Highway, because Lost Highway is like 2 different movies in one. Okay. It's like the first part, it leads up to something, a traumatic thing happens, and then all of a sudden it starts all over again with like the same people. But that movie I watch over and over and over again to try to make sense, because I was like, wait, how did he get to whatever in that traumatic part? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's also kind of like, it doesn't have that type of structure, or even kind of like Donnie Darko. I'm starting to just think of like these traumatic events, and then
not enough
things shift, and then it turns into another perspective, I guess.
Yeah, there's not enough actual connections between the first half and the second half of this to go looking for more. Like,
yeah.
There's no correlations to say like where these timelines might meld, or if it's just honestly just pure fantasy for the first half. So If you out there do want to watch Afraid of the Dark as of this recording in October 2022, it's available on digital rental, VHS, or DVD. As always, check your local listings. You can listen to us on all of your major podcasting platforms. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe, and tell your friends. You can email us at 1991movierewind@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, YouTube. Just search 1991 Movie Rewind or go to 1991movierewind.com for the full list of movies, all in the show notes and more.